Good morning. Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. With me today, good friend and special guest, Jack McCann with McCann & Hubbard over in the Cool Springs area there in Franklin. And we've been talking about estate planning this morning. One of those just before the break that Jack had talked about was the starting point. Let's say if you have a will, and of course it can be the same with a trust in this matter, and that is the gathering up of everything, making sure that all the assets are accounted for. Sometimes this may mean, in particular if you're helping a parent who, you just lost a parent and you're helping the surviving parent with that, and they're, maybe they're not the ones that handled all those kind of things. So how do you gather all that up? How do you find these things? You're looking for the bank account, watching the mail to make sure that you're getting things in, and these days watching your emails as well for notices that you get through that. So you want to make sure that you've accounted for all the assets and they're gathered together. A checklist, the estate planning process itself, just like Jack's saying here, it starts before that. Okay, when we're setting up, helping a client, whether it's a will or in most instances, in my clients, it's trust, when we're setting those up, we're getting organized at that point. We're doing all of that and having, basically we create spreadsheets that has all that down for you, so that when we're done with the estate planning process and getting a good estate plan set up, you've already got everything organized, okay? It's already in place. And as Jack said, that's the important, one of the most important pieces. That's going to make it a lot easier on when you are gone. It's going to be a lot easier for your family then to do that administration. Now, Jack, we're going to talk about the difference between trust and will, but let's start out with the will, and in particular, as we were talking about. So someone comes into your office and this lost, let's say, a parent, and they're having to deal with the will, and what's the process then of administering that estate and opening up probate, and what's the probate process like?
Sure, yeah. So I sit down with them, once they've completed that list that we talked about, where they've got all their assets, got all their liabilities, and we know how accounts are titled, or cars, houses, and accounts are titled, and if there's a death beneficiary, then we can figure out, well, what needs to go through probate, because the process of probate is really, it's there for basically two things, three things. The courts want to make sure that the creditors get paid. The courts want to authorize someone to make the transfer of title to whoever it needs to go to, and the courts want to make sure that all the beneficiaries are included, everybody who's in the will. If you don't have a will, then the state has a default plan for you, and that is literally all of your heirs. So if you've got if you've got minor children, a mixed family, any kind of issues within the family, it's vital that you at least have a will, if not a trust. A trust would be better in that circumstance. But even when we do trust, we also do wills. The will is a pour over, and it puts assets into the trust. Anything that wasn't put into the trust before death, we can put in the trust after death using a will. But I was going to make another comment on the you had mentioned this. A lot of times people have the mistake of, they think, oh, well, so-and-so's gone, we need to clean up all of their stuff and get rid of it. Don't do that. I've had numerous times when people come in where they got a check from a distribution on annuity or some sort of investment account where it's quarterly, and it's made out in the name of the decedent, and they've already closed all the decedent's accounts. So that's a major frustration. Keep those accounts open. You can go to the bank and you can limit any signers. You can put a freeze on the account, but you can't put deposits into it unless you still have that account open. And if you get a check made to a decedent and you have no more accounts in that decedent's name, then we have to go through the process of getting an EIN and opening a new account, or sending the check back and getting it made out to the nowadays we have to send the check back to that company and get it made out to the estate. So it's important that you talk to your financial advisor and your attorney before you start closing things down, shutting things off, turning everything into cash or getting rid of it. But you get that list together, we sit down and we talk about, well, what assets do need to go through probate? What assets are under the supervision of the probate court? And once I've got that list, then my job gets a little bit more involved, and the job of the executor gets a little less involved because we have to put all the paperwork together. We have, especially recently with all the COVID, it used to be, we always had to go to court. We had at least a hearing or two throughout the process of the probate, and then we had another hearing to close probate. Well, nowadays the courts have gotten used to letting the attorneys just handle that. So I get signatures on everything at my office, and I'd say probably 60% of the time, the executor doesn't even have to come to the hearing. I do the hearing, and a month ago we were doing hearings online with the Davidson County Probate Court. So it's a bit more work for me, but a lot less work for the executor. And it's really not hard, but you want an executor or a trustee who is responsible and will answer the phone and will get on getting paperwork that we need to do that probate. And that's where it's really helpful. If you've got a financial advisor that you've worked with who's helped you to sort of keep these lists together over the years, then that financial advisor can take a lot of the burden off of figuring out what needs to go through probate and what does not.
And this process, as far as how long are we talking about, Jack, from say the beginning to the end, if everything goes smoothly, and then also, of course, on average, not usually things don't go that smoothly. There's going to be some delays, I'm sure. What would you say the average time typically to go through probate? And in that process, let's say we're going to be dealing with things like a house. What does that? If they're dealing with wanting to sell the house, does that get done in probate, or do they have to wait until probate's over? As an example. Yeah,
that's a good question. So probate is well, we've got several forms of probate in Tennessee. We actually do have a form of probate called minument of title, when it's basically a one-day probate when we're dealing only with real estate. Most of the time, though, probate's about a 6-month period. It's at least going to be 4 months because that's the statutory requirement if we open probate, regular probate. But it's not uncommon for probate to last up to a year. When it lasts a year, it's usually because we've got a difficult asset to sell, or there's some sort of time frame on some asset like a CD where we have to wait out some sort of period or something. But usually probate's about 6 months, and we file all the paperwork, we get the letters testamentary, we get the executor authorized to handle whatever assets that need to be handled through probate, and then we go about doing either the transfers of title or the sale of those assets. It's important. You don't want probate to be an emergency kind of thing, because the last thing you want to do is be selling assets in a desperation, because you're not going to get fair market value for them. So that's one reason why probate takes a little bit longer, is we want to wait for the market to be at a good time to sell. Obviously real estate is better in the summertime than it is in the wintertime. You can sell real estate any time of year, but a lot more buyers out there in the summertime.
Right.
And sometimes it's a matter of cleaning things up. We want to, executors ask me about this all the time. Well, I don't have time to clean up the house. Well, there's people we can hire to do that. And we can, if you've got the money available, we can spend a couple $1,000s cleaning the house, painting it, maybe putting in new carpet before we put it on the market, and then you can get a much better price for it when you do sell it.
So we've got the time frame it takes to go through probate. There's of course going to be some expenses. You're going to have court fees and of course attorney's fees and that are involved there. And then depending on the county you live in and who your attorney is as to what that cost could be, that could vary greatly according to where you're at and who you've got doing the work. The next piece comes in then with probate and it's completed. The process basically is getting this property, these accounts over into the beneficiaries' names so that they can now, those monies are transferred over into their accounts. The real estate is either, if they're not, maybe they're not going to sell it. Maybe they're going to hold on to it for a little bit. Maybe they'll keep it as a rental property, in particular if you have just a single beneficiary. Though I've seen it even with 2 and 3, where they'll do something like that, or even multiples where the family home, for whatever reason, they want to hold on to it for a bit. In that process, in doing that, it still has to be, that title, that deed has to be changed over into their names, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right.
And then we get into, and this whole process of all that being done, now they can deal with, do the things they want. But as you said, one of the downsides, you mentioned an annuity payment that could come in, and if they need to make sure that they keep certain accounts open. The most important thing is, when someone passes, you need to, immediately reach out. If your financial advisor has been involved in it, reach out to the advisor and to the attorney. In my office, we help with administration with estates for my clients. That's part of the value that we bring to that relationship. And we work closely with the attorneys, like Jack's office and other attorneys that we've worked with over the years in helping them through that process. And in particular, they're going to have money decisions. They're going to have maybe, mention annuity payouts. Well, what are they going to do with that, and how do we handle that? IRAs, maybe not cashing it out and having a huge tax, but being able to spread that out, or to, by transferring it into an inherited IRA. So making sure that this is handled in such a way that they don't make a mistake and end up with a lot more expense, higher taxes, and that they could have avoided had they just, so first thing, get in to see that attorney and that advisor, and they're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to make it easy. By the way, if you'd like a review of your estate plan, if you'd like to maybe get an estate plan set up, just call my office. That number is 615-376-5325. We can arrange a meeting with Jack in my office to meet with you, discuss the differences between wills, trusts, and other estate planning documents that you may need, the importance of those. We go into all that. In addition, you can get a comprehensive financial plan done at the same time at no cost. So again, call my office. In fact, let's limit it to 10 callers this week, 615-376-5325. Give us a call, and we will send out a checklist of things you'll need to bring to your appointment. If you'd like to just get a review of your estate planning documents, we can arrange to get a copy of those to Jack to give a review of what any shortfalls any recommendations he would have for you based on what you're currently doing. And a lot of times, people maybe done a will and it's 15, 20, 25 years ago that they did it when the kids were little, and now things have changed and they know they need to do something. Well, we're going to make it easy for you to do that. So just give us a call, 615-376-5325, and we'll send you out a checklist of things you'll need to get this work done. And whether you come into the office or need some help over the phone, we can help you either way. But we are doing appointments in the office, all right? CDC guidelines are being followed, of course. We sanitize everything. Social distancing in there. With my conference room, that's quite easy. We can be 10 or 12 feet apart with no problem. So give us a call, 615-376-5325. When you call, we'll get Tess will take out answer any questions you have, and then send out a checklist of things you need to bring to your appointment with me. And when you come in to see me, I'll also give you a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom in Retirement. And yes, the 7th step is on estate planning, so you can get a head start on the process itself. All right, Jack, one of the things there, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the differences in, we've just kind of walked through a probate process with a will. The next would be when someone comes in and you've done a revocable trust form for the family, and now we're talking about let's say the child's coming in, parents are gone, and they're needing help with that and what that looks like. But first a break. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report. When could paying more tax mean paying less tax? Here is money tip number 54. With tax rate at historic lows, consider a Roth conversion.